Sawadee and welcome to another episode here for the Funk Report, Mindful Media and Communication. And right before I jump into the podcast, quick disclaimer, as you've seen from the episode title probably. So before I dive in, a disclaimer, please do not try to cancel me after this episode. Today we're delving deeper into the ever controversial world of cancel culture, as you've seen, right? So if you've ever tweeted, posted something like 10 years ago and you regret it, or you ever made a bad joke at a party, in the age of cancel culture, to be honest, your past might just be a ticking time bomb. But is that entirely a bad thing? I mean, we talk about it all the time, terrible cancel culture, but is it a bad thing necessarily? If you said it, right? Let's break it down, okay? So let me give you some historical context first, and then we dive into more detail, right? So first up, this mini history lesson, okay? So cancel culture didn't just pop up with the invention of Twitter. X, formerly known as Twitter. Remember when Shakespeare wrote about Julius Caesar getting the ultimate cancel from Brutus, basically? Okay. Maybe it's not the same thing, but the essence of cancel culture, societal pushback, has ancient roots. So, they push back against Julius Caesar, for example, right? So, however, it's platforms like Twitter, X, Threads now, not yet, maybe soon, and Instagram that have given steroids to this movement. I don't know why I did this with my arm, steroids. Steroids, or how do you take steroids? Anyways, so social media has given basically steroids to this movement, creating those mega amplifiers for public opinion, right? Because now, I don't have to explain to you how social media works, right? We can share our opinions, our voices everywhere, all the time, 24/7. So now I said in the intro, is it necessarily a bad thing, the cancel culture? And I do think there might be some pros to it. Let me talk, right? So, before we all jump on the I hate cancel culture train, because of course eventually we might end up there. Let's chat about some of the potential perks, okay? One of those being accountability. Yeah, in the era of fake news, holding people accountable, especially the rich and famous and politicians, okay, feels pretty good, doesn't it? Isn't it a good thing? It's like seeing that school bully, they're finally getting their comeuppance. Cancel culture keeps the big shots on their toes. They can't relax because remember, right, with great power comes great responsibility. So a swarm of Twitter/X users, not ex-Twitter users, ready to dig through your dirt, your old posts, might keep you on your toes. And if you're in public office and things like that, is it a bad thing? Worth thinking about. Also, another perk might be awareness and education. If you know that moment when someone goes, I didn't realize it was offensive. Oh, sorry. Oh. Yeah, there you go. So cancel culture can actually serve as a societal crash course of sorts. It's like a very public, sometimes very messy learning moment, just in a public space. And that's not a bad thing, is it? Right? So if you're on Twitter, X, Instagram, wherever you are, and you're saying something, commenting something, and someone points out how this is maybe offensive, you're oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, you're right. Huh. For example, I had someone just because I'm from Germany, right? I'm German. I live in Thailand, but I'm German, so I meet lots of people from different walks of life, different nationalities, and so on. And someone was calling me a Nazi in jest, he thought it's funny because I'm from Germany. I know Nazis from Germany. And he kept calling me Nazi, and I got really upset. And he's like, "Why, bro?" And we were friendly, right? So usually, and he's like, "Why are you so upset?" And I told him, "Well, if you call a German Nazi, it's not funny. I know maybe it's funny when you see it on TV or something, but it's not funny if you call us Nazi." And then he's like, "Oh shit, I didn't realize that. Okay, I'm sorry." A learning moment. Okay, so I think if you have those shared learning moments, maybe that's something positive. Also, and now I'm going to add some media theory into it just to remind you of what we discussed before in this podcast. Yeah, let's not forget the little guide as well. Yeah, for groups historically like pushed to the sidelines, like cancel culture might offer like a mic to actually amplify the voices. Yeah, think of it as democratization of backlash, like powered by the media's two-step flow theory. There you go. We talked about this before, right? From influencers like to the masses, right? So if we analyze a little bit more, and I hope you remember because I talked about it before, but in the 40s, right? So we had like the researchers, I'm just going to give you the names now, Sarsfield and Katz. This theory of like two-step flow suggested media or media content first influences opinion leaders, and those opinion leaders then influence the masses, right? So we don't consume the raw media, all everything that happened. We consume what the opinion leaders, that could be news anchors, that could be influencers, whatnot, what those opinion leaders give to us. Okay. So in the age of social media, influencers and celebrities often act as those opinion leaders. And when they are canceled or like when they lead the charge against someone else, they can, of course, rapidly steer public opinion into certain areas. So cancel culture, in a way, leverages this two-step flow. And the empowered masses, fueled by opinion leaders, can then drive societal change. But before you say, yeah, cancel culture, this is a double-edged sword, like a very sharp double-edged sword, if you think about it, right? And now we turn this sword around and talk about the cons of cancel culture, right? Because it's obviously not all rosy, not all awesome. You shouldn't go out and cancel just everybody. So let's also look at the murkier side of cancel culture. The first and most important point being probably rushing to judgment. If you've ever tried to make it's metaphor time, to make instant noodles. Yeah, so cancel culture are like the instant noodles of judgment. Yeah, quick, sometimes satisfying, but often lacking nutritional value, being context, right? So we rush to judgment like, yeah, this person is terrible. And it feels like, yeah, we said the right thing, but we don't really know why. We don't really know the context. We just saw everyone hating on this person and we jump onto it, but we didn't really do our research as to why, right? So there's no real context to it. Yes, that's a bit of like lack of nuance, if you will. And sometimes movies get lost in translation, right? That's kind of like cancel culture with complex issues. If we talk about like stripping away all the nuances and like serving a binary buffet, it's like good or it's bad. Decide now. And so then we make our choice like, yeah, that's a bad person, I'm the good person. But it's not just good or bad. There's nuances in between that we then just ignore. Okay. And that's, of course, not a good thing. Nuances are important. Also, and you know that I'm a big proponent of all things mental health here on the podcast. So mental health implications are a big thing here. And I'm going to add another theory to it in just a second. Because behind every tweet, every post, every whatever, there's a real person, hopefully. So spearheading like this cancel campaign might feel righteous, but what about the human at the receiving end? And now we're adding the media theory. We talked about this also before, the spiral of silence theory. It tells us how fears of isolation can like muscle opinions. You add cancel culture, and that's like a spicy cocktail of like stress for the person on the receiving end. If we go academic for a second, right? The spiral of silence theory that we mentioned in the previous episodes. And today I'm giving you all the names. So it was proposed in the 70s. I should have noted that down, but I think it was in the 70s by Miss Nöll Neumann. See the German pronouncing it. It highlights the human tendency to remain silent when they believe that their views are in the minority, so that they would feel social isolation. Okay, so you're saying, or like I'm saying, the spiral of silence means I have an opinion, but I think many others on X, on Instagram, and so on, wouldn't share my opinion. So if I share mine, I'm in the minority. And so I don't share it, because if I share it, they would isolate me. They would say, like, you're weird, we don't want to talk to you, you're the outsider. Okay? That's why I keep it to myself. Now, bringing this together with the cancel culture, okay? If someone feels their entire social circle or the internet might cancel them, they might suppress their opinions, even if the opinions would be valuable, would show like a different side of things, maybe. Yeah, this silence, this self-censorship, can breed resentment and, worse, impact mental well-being. And we're talking about like a very, very like toxic mix of public shaming and personal isolation. It's a terrible combination. So let me give you some real life cases actually, and I'm gonna spill the tea on some famous cases, because I think all of those that were involved are A, famous, so it's okay to talk about it, and B, they came out on the other side better for it, probably. So one would be James Gunn, right? James Gunn, fired from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I think, over some old tweets, right? Then, thanks to public outcry and like a pinch of common sense, if you will, but hey, I'm trying not to add too much opinion here, he was rehired. And it makes you wonder about those snap judgments that we discussed in the beginning, those instant noodles, right? Like some old tweet, some people are offended, then, oh, let's fire him. And then, maybe it's not that bad. And actually, we need you, because without you, it doesn't work. No, snap judgments are a terrible thing when it comes to cancel culture. Next example, and that's of course the example we have to talk about, J.K. Rowling. From the queen of magic to a controversial figure. What a transformation J.K. Rowling has lived through, right? And Rowling's comments on gender sparked like a huge storm. But, let's be honest, it also sparked some dialogue. And it led to the question, like, how do we balance respect with freedom of speech? Just because you disagree with her, do you want her to not be able to share her opinion? Or do you say, well, I want to know what you think, and so I know whether or not to support you or not? Or we can have a debate about it, for example. What's the right thing to do? Remember, binary options, good or bad? No, there's nuance to it, right? So also in this example. And the last famous example I thought of to present you today is Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart. Oscars host one day, right? Out the next day. And I think Kevin Hart's story teaches us about reflection and growth. And how long is long enough when it comes to like past mistakes? Because yeah, he did say outrageous stuff way back when. He apologized for it. But you can still find it online, what he said way back when. So it got surfaced, and then like, yeah, how can you have him host the Oscars? He said something outrageous. I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I don't know how long. I forgot, but a long time ago. And he apologized for it. Should that be okay then? Should it not? Should it always hunt you? Don't we evolve? Does it matter? So I'm not giving you answers on it. I'm just trying to make you think about it, okay? Actually, like as I mentioned earlier, and as you know from my accent, I'm from Germany, and there's an interesting issue right now. And I'm not making it too political, but it's a political example. So one of the ministers in my home province from Bavaria, he said some outrageous like right-wing stuff when he was, I think, 17, 18, something around those lines. And some of his former classmates now came out saying, yeah, that was not like a sole incident. He made lots of those remarks back then, like right-wing related, Nazi-related remarks, right? And now, I don't know, 30 years later, that surfaced, and now people are asking for his head. Like, he cannot be a minister anymore because what he said 30 years ago. Now, how much does this define someone, what you said 30 years ago? But also, if you thought about it 30 years ago, maybe you think about or think the same way now, or maybe you think even more that way now. We don't know. So it's a tough question, right? So how long is long enough? And should you be forgiven? Answers, please leave them in the comments, because I'm really interested to see what you think about that. And we have to discuss like accountability versus forgiveness. Like, what is more important? When does which set in? And it's the $1 million question. Like, can we hold folks accountable while leaving some room for redemption? Now, remember the cultivation theory we discussed many times here on the podcast? Yeah, how media molds our perception of reality. Like, what if cancel culture is in part a reaction to media's portrayal of perfection? And maybe it's time we actually recognize growth, change, and the ability to learn from mistakes. A cultivation theory developed by Mr. Gabner, like in the late 60s, posits that prolonged exposure to TV, and by extension any media, of course, shapes our perceptions of reality. Today, with cancel culture largely driven by, of course, online platforms, it's worth pondering, like, are our perceptions of public figures being cultivated by the snippets that we see online? If media consistently showcases the perfect celebrity, then any deviation, any mistake can become amplified. In a world where the media cultivates unrealistic expectations, cancel culture thrives. But perhaps what we need is media that also cultivates understanding, empathy, and, hey, just putting it out there, the recognition that people can actually grow. Whew. So that was a roller coaster, wasn't it? From Shakespeare to Twitter, X. Oh, Elon Musk might like that. Shakespeare and Elon Musk in the same sentence. Cancel culture is an ever-evolving beast, and while it has its moments, I think, in the sun, it's essential to navigate it, in my opinion, with empathy and critical thinking. And you see, I talk about this all the time now, right? So after all, today's canceler could be tomorrow's cancelled. So let's be kind, hopefully. Let's be smart. And let's be maybe just a tad bit more forgiving. And remember to always think twice before you tweet, X, post, share, or cancel. And let me know what you think about this whole cancel culture thing. Shout out in the comments. Give some feedback, would be appreciated. If you found this interesting, do like, do share, do subscribe. That would be awesome. Or leave a review so we can have a broader discussion. I hope you didn't cancel me after this episode, and I hope we talk to each other again soon in the next episode. Until then, as always, stay safe, take care, and we talk soon. Sawadee Krap.